Coors Light dress.
Welcome back to the South Baltimore Now podcast. Today we are sitting with John Shea and Brendan O'Brien, just a couple of old Irish guys who combined have over 60 years of financial experience. They're based here in South Baltimore. They have a new business venture that we're going to talk about today. They actually go back in this neighborhood many years. They are fellow dads here in the neighborhood. Kids go to school here. They live here. They work here. You know, that's kind of a theme that we have going on here at South Baltimore Now. How great it is to be part of this peninsula and this community. We're going to talk about the neighborhood, our kids, whatever else comes up. Our goal was to record this podcast in true Irish guy fashion here. Be in a pub and just kind of have a couple pints and talk about their business, talk about the neighborhood. I do love this place, man. Livs is great.
Yeah, I mean, the Guinnesses are poured great. But no, it feels right.
Yeah.
It feels right here.
This is my first time being in here since it was Mother's. But they've done a beautiful job of renovating this place. And
looks great.
The food is great. Thank you, Livs, for letting us come down here and record today.
Yeah, shout out to the French dip and the best fries in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it still feels like Mother's in here, but it has a new energy, new renovation to it. So we certainly wish them the best.
So, gentlemen, welcome.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on. It's good to catch up with you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's been forever, right? I totally wasn't texting with you the second I was walking the door about something else.
Right. As most of us know, this neighborhood, there's only 2 points of separation from anybody. Brendan, Kevin, and I, and John have all known each other for quite a while, and we appreciate you guys jumping on here. This year, I've been featuring a lot of smaller businesses on the podcast around the peninsula and those that serve the peninsula. And you guys have been in the business of financial wealth management for combined 60 years.
Yeah, I've been in the business since the late 1900s. Going way back. I had a friend who was a manager over at Legg Mason and was invited to join their vaunted training program over there. And I was happy to be part of a nice local company in Baltimore called Legg Mason. Over multiple iterations, and as you know, the financial services industry changes all the time. Ended up in what's called the independent channel, where I just sort of hung up my own shingle and have a big financial backer and LPL Financial behind us, but have created my own little business that gives me the ability to come and go as I please and pick my kids up at school and drop them off at practice and stuff like that.
What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, a little bit of a different path for me. After I graduated from Providence College, I landed at State Street Bank and started my career working with public pension funds. So, state of Maryland was a client, state of Mississippi, state of Tennessee, started to learn the investment business that way. Moved down to Baltimore in 2009 and worked remotely for a little while. And then ultimately with Brendan's wife, Judy, at I guess it's called the Baltimore Family Alliance now, but it was the Downtown Baltimore Family Alliance. I was the director of development for the DBFA for a spell. I moved on from the not-for-profit sector and joined a firm down in Severna Park. I worked there for a while, and then during the pandemic, wound up having to move on to take care of the kids and make sure the house was still standing. After the pandemic, I caught up with Brendan and talked to him about starting my own thing. And, he was awesome and said, come on down and we'll talk. And here we are.
Yeah, I was lonely in the office.
So clearly we have two guys with deep Dundalk accents.
yeah, right.
How did you end up in South Baltimore and why'd you stay?
My wife and I, we did the long distance thing for a while between Rhode Island and Baltimore. And she was living out in Essex at the time, actually. After we got married, we made the commitment to move in the city. And to be honest with you, we looked up and down between here and D.C. And I did not think this would be the spot. But we landed in Locust Point and turned out to be a great decision. I wouldn't undo it.
Yeah, I came to Baltimore from Boston to go to college, and after graduating from college, I just still had a lot of friends here in Baltimore. I've since then often said, Baltimore gets its hooks in you. It's not on the surface the easiest city to embrace, but once you're in it, I think you make it your own. And when Judy and I got married, we had a meeting about where are we going to live, and we just decided that we should stay in Baltimore, roll up our sleeves, and do our best to make the city a better place. I mean, that was our mission as a family, to roll up our sleeves and work hard at the schools or what have you. The one thing that John and I have in common is that throughout our years here in Baltimore, we've always volunteered somewhere. We've always given our time, whether it be at schools or local sports, you name it.
I'm probably most proud of the successes and the progress that's been made at Francis Scott Key. When we moved here, we were pregnant with our first daughter, Mackenzie, and wondered why everyone left and went to school at Thomas Johnson. With the help of the neighborhood and a lot of parents, that school has become a school where our kids want to go and where teachers want to teach. Not a school in the community, but a community school now, right? So, I mean, that's changed quite a bit from when we moved here in 2009. So, very happy with the way that ball's bounced.
Yeah, I'm sure many of our listeners would agree that in living in Baltimore, you get married, you have kids, and invariably someone in the neighborhood, most often some old-timer walks up to you and says, oh, now that you've had kids, you're probably going to have to move. Judy and I heard that all through our first couple years. We thought, why does that have to be? And we got to meet some folks from Federal Hill Prep. It turns out that you don't have to move. In fact, the schools in the peninsula, the schools in the neighborhood, and the Baltimore City schools are far better than the reputation that you hear on the street. We just thought if half the problems of Baltimore are because people kept uprooting and leaving, then we thought we could help solve those problems by putting down stakes and staying. That was our goal.
And your kids had a good time here as well?
I think if you ask them, they've done pretty well. They've had a good time.
I would agree. If you talk to any of the Shea kids, yeah, I mean, they're not interested in relocating anywhere. So, yeah, we've shown them greener pastures, as people say, but they feel like they're dug in here too.
It's hard to pass up when you got a turf field 2 blocks from your house, right? My absolute dream when I was a kid was to be able to kick field goals anytime I wanted, because I played football and 400 kids wanted to try to kick a field goal afterwards, and I would get maybe 2 attempts a year. So, just to live in a neighborhood where you could just walk up and kick field goals anytime you wanted would be like a dream of mine when I was a kid.
We caught up over Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
That's where our boys were down at Banner Field kicking field goals.
Yeah.
So you can forward my calls to Banner Field on a day when school is out, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, the thing that keeps us here is the local sports scene. There's been a lot of our friends and people we love who've invested a ton of time local sports, be it basketball, soccer, baseball, you name it. So it's just become a real place to raise your kids. I mean, the Burbs got nothing on us. Not to mention we come to Liv's for a lunchtime, lunchtime pints.
And walk home.
And then walk home, right?
Yeah.
I would say our family just rides the coattails. We didn't do any trailblazing down here. We're just...
You don't have to trailblaze. You just have to keep building on those bricks, right?
Do you have any recommendations or ideas to help people financially to think about the pros and cons of staying in the city versus the county, for example? Lawn care is going to be a lot more in the suburbs, you know?
True.
Yeah, grass is always greener, right? If you want to move into the suburbs with the 3-bedroom house with the yard, et cetera, there's always another side of that coin. I think you got to follow your heart and put down roots where you think you can have the most effect for your family. The O'Briens have a family mission. I would suggest to people, sit down with your spouse and your kids and come up with, what are you trying to do? And if you can't do it here, find the cul-de-sac to do that, out in Howard County. But I suspect that there's plenty of opportunity for people to really roll up their sleeves and do stuff here in this neighborhood and live a very full life. Yeah, you might have to deal with smaller bedrooms and doesn't have a full guest room maybe for when people come and visit, but that's why they make pull-up couches.
Yeah, I think the days of getting to 3rd grade and then having to move out to Severna Park because you don't trust the school system have passed us by. You've got schools here on the peninsula that are solid, and you can stay as long or as little as you want. If you want to be here, we want you here. The city embraces great families, and the more great families we have, the better this place will be.
And I could say for myself and probably everybody else here, my social life's pretty good living down here too,
We say that about you too, Kev. Look at that guy.
It ain't that good, but there's always somebody else that wants to have a beer in an open space while your kids kick some sort of ball around.
Somebody's garage is always open, right?
That's right.
The kids are running around.
Yeah. Some people have karaoke in their garage.
Some people have karaoke, some people have solo stoves. You can just stumble upon it anytime.
Pull it out, right?
Yeah. That's one thing I will say too. My wife and I, when we moved here 15 years ago, we knew no one. We were just looking at each other like, what do we do? And she kept saying, I bet when we have kids, I bet we're going to meet more people. Sure enough, 2 years later, we had kids and the whole neighborhood opened up. It's just kind of catapults from there.
I always joke when you see somebody on a local forum, like, what's the best way to meet people around here? I'm like, have you considered adopting a 4-year-old? That would get you right on track.
$1 million idea, right?
You might lose your sleep in your happy hours. But how would you guys rate Baltimore as a finance city? You hear about T. Rowe Price, you hear about Legg Mason. Obviously, New York's the giant when it comes to finance, but I know you guys have worked for big companies and then went out on yourself. How would you rate Baltimore as a city for finance?
I actually don't think the city itself rates anymore now that Legg Mason's gone. And while T-Row is here, I think they're doing very well, and they'll probably remain independent forever. It can't really compare to New York or Philly or even Chicago. But that's all right, because that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
What John and I do is more about relationships and giving advice, especially advice for things that we already have experienced ourselves. You don't need JP Morgan in New York City or Citigroup in order to do that, right? Yeah. John and I have lived a lot of this stuff, and we can certainly tell you where we've gone wrong.
I think the big businesses, they'll come and go. They're going to make business decisions. We're here. We've made a business and a personal decision to be in this area, and to carve out, some space and to work here. So, we want to be here, and, we want to help and work with people in these neighborhoods. So the big point is that the JP Morgans of the world, the Citibanks will come and go. But yeah, when you have guys who are like in the weeds, the guys you see every day who are dropping their kids at school like you and going to Federal Hill to work like you, it's just like, yeah, hopefully that rings true with people.
So what is the quickest way to make $1 million?
Info at oldirishguysfinancial.com.
You're going to tell me that investing in Guinness at 1:30 in an afternoon is not a good investment?
Listen, doesn't hurt.
This is going to turn into a think tank. So
I've heard of worse investments. Why don't you guys give a shout out to your business? Tell us why we should hit your guys' inbox.
Combined book of business, Old Irish Guys Financial, which we thought was very fitting with our Boston backgrounds and our heritage. So we went with Old Irish Guys. We're here to work with our neighbors, with our friends, and to work with people who are living in the 21230 or living in Canton. Sports has brought us to meet a lot of people who live around like this horseshoe of the city. Hopefully this spreads and, we're able to get some legs and some leverage there. But yeah, we want to be able to be here and be a resource for people who are in this neighborhood.
John and I were talking one day and we realized we've been here for a long time. We know a lot of folks. If you need a dentist, we can give you a recommendation. If you need a band for an event, we know a guy. We thought we could be those types of people for our clients, the folks who've got a finger on everything that's going on in the neighborhood. We also think that we've developed a fair amount of goodwill in the neighborhood. We've volunteered alongside a lot of folks here over the last 20, 25 years. We hope that we've built up enough trust with our friends and family that if they wanted to ask us about something else and know that we'd keep it confidential and give them our best advice for one situation or another, we thought we'd be perfect for that. Yeah, we're doing with a little wry smile, a little wink and a nod, maybe raise a glass. We want to be approachable. We try to deal with a lot of this with humor. But when it comes down to meeting with people about their finances, we can be pretty serious. We just want to have a little fun with it. We know a lot of folks, and we would love our twilight years be a lot of fun.
I'm way younger than you, dude.
For those not on the YouTube channel, they're not as old as they're saying. And clearly the tip to setting up a strong financial future is starting a podcast, right?
Clearly.
Well, we do have a podcast.
We do.
Did you know that?
Speaking of that, yeah.
Yeah, we've started a podcast. We've named it The Penny and the Pint, and we've started a series called Net Worth and Chill. That is a series of conversations about how to talk about finances with your significant other. We're trying to lay out the foundation of having a good, healthy conversation about money within a partnership.
This is one of those things that we've, as we talk internally, we're just like, where do people feel like they need direction? This is a great building block for starting that off. How do you make $1 million? You start by talking to your spouse or your significant other and figure out, well, what are we spending, right? So this is all stuff where it's like, let us help you get to that point where $1 million is feasible. If you have real questions because you've talked to your spouse, great, we're here to help you answer them.
I think I have a good idea for episode number 5. We can title it How to Make $1 Million. What do you think? People will be excited about that.
I was thinking the line from Austin Powers where Dr. Evil goes, I demand $1 million. And they're like, okay,
here you go.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, it might cost $1 million to send your kids to college in 5 years. But
yeah, that's the stuff we're prepared to discuss. Yeah, college has gotten scary expensive, right? We've all been there, and our parents looked at it the same way, like, holy blarney, it's like, this stuff's expensive. So, it's only gotten more expensive. So yeah, we're here to help you figure that out.
When people reach out to you initially, is there something that seems to bring them in the door or start that conversation more than others?
I can think of 2 things. Often we get folks who have saved some money over maybe a 7 to 10 year career and just have piles or pots of money in like 7 different places. They've changed jobs 4 times and their financial picture is spread out over a bunch of different places. One of the things John and I do, which is very simple for us, is help people to consolidate and be able to see the one big picture from the 30,000-foot view. I think that's probably the number one thing we can do for people, help them to see it all at one time. And I would say the second thing that we do best is when people come to us and say, how do I do it all? I need to save for retirement. I need to save for college. I need money for vacation. My parents are down the street and I might need to help them with living in the future, whatever. The systems that we use, the programs that we have can uncover how to do it all. It may not be to the extent that you want to do everything, but we can help to balance out how to do multiple things at one time.
We give a perspective to customers or to friends or to clients that they may not think of, right? Where it's kind of like, you have this money, you have this, you have that. Let's put it all under one umbrella and get a look at it. And then we're just like, what do you think about this? Do you plan on using this for your retirement? Or do you think you're going to use this to buy a new car and fix your roof? What are your goals, right? Because everyone has those things, and everyone has those things they're going to need to pay for in the future. How are you going to do that?
Makes sense. I hope everyone checks out the new podcast called The Penny and the Pint by the Old Irish Guys. You can find it anywhere you find your podcasts. You can also find it at oldirishguysfinancial.com.